Well, thank you for having me. Extremely heartbroken, extremely shaken up. Charlie Kirk was one of my closest friends in this business, in a business where you don't have a lot of friends. That seems so lonely at times. Charlie Kirk was my mentor. I've talked to him just in the last 2 days. He was so excited about going to Utah, so excited to get back on college campuses. Charlie Kirk was a walking, talking beacon of hope, Will. I know you know that. And I want to be really clear to your audience that the only reason that Donald Trump is sitting in the Oval Office this afternoon is because of Charlie Kirk and because of Charlie Kirk's tireless work ethic. Charlie and I first met in the fourth grade when I started my podcast, and not a lot of people wanted to go on a fourth grader's podcast, but Charlie took a chance on me when he didn't have to. And I want to tell you my favorite Charlie story that just kind of brought a smile to my face a moment ago as I was thinking of it again. I asked Charlie after the interview, I said, Charlie, you're such a huge figure. What advice do you have for an 11-year-old like me? And he said, Brylan, the left may have all the money in the world, but they can never outwork me. I will wake up as early as I need to. I will stay up as late as I need to, and I will never stop fighting for this country. And that was so many years ago. And we'll spend this week remembering Charlie and remembering his legacy. And a lot of people have a lot of things to say about the impact that Charlie had on this nation and on the youth movement and getting Gen Z off the sidelines. But I just want your audience right now to remember Charlie as a family man, as a man who, even during the election cycles, all of us were crisscrossing the nation, still took the time to take a Sabbath, still took the time to turn his phone off on Sundays, to go to church with his kids, to go to church with his wife. And those are the people I'm thinking of right now. His amazing wife, Erica, his 2 young children. Well, what do you say to them now? Do you say that dad went to speak on a college campus, a place of free expression, and he never came home? And you know this. I've been with Charlie at dozens of these speeches. He goes and he opens the microphone, and the first thing that he says to his audience is, if you disagree with me, come to the front of the line. Please have a conversation. This person that clearly disagreed with him could have saved all this by talking. Well, if anything, I hope that this pisses us off so much that we start talking again, because I'm outraged that we are living in a nation where civil discourse is bygone. And if anything, Charlie would want us to have conversations, because that's what he lived his life doing.
I'd like to start this video off with an apology. I played that clip of Brylan Hollyhand, and I didn't really find him to be that eloquent or appealing of a speaker, so I really was not intending for anyone to be offended by such lame oratory. Now, when Kirk was shot and news came out of it, I was doing an interview for a job, and on my phone I saw where Secular Talk had a video that said, breaking news, Charlie Kirk has been shot, or was shot, or is shot, was the title. And after, I'd say about 20, 30, 40 minutes, I was heading into another location when I saw a tweet from Cenk where he expressed frustration that Kirk had died from his injuries, had succumbed to his wounds. And when that happened, I was really disgusted. I was disturbed to such an extent that I made a second video about it the next day where I had a drawing of Kirk, and it took me a whole day to even be able to look at a picture of the man, because I just couldn't believe what had happened and the brutality of the act. Because afterward I saw the video that was getting shared around of the shooting, which made me sick to my stomach, and it really scared me that someone who was, regardless of what you thought of his political views, and I was not a fan of his views, could be on a campus, supposedly debating the different ideals and ideas that have, been in the United States since its inception, and they get murdered for participating in this practice. I thought it was very disturbing that could happen, and I don't think it should have happened. It makes me uncomfortable that type of thing could happen to anyone, regardless of their affiliations, if they're notable enough and they talk about, politics and the news and current events. And I was even more uncomfortable with the way people were reacting to it, where they talked as if some great supervillain had been defeated. Now, with all of that being said, you look at Brylan, and this is a guy who knew Kirk, interacted with him repeatedly, apparently gave him a leg up with his goofy podcast he started in fourth grade. And he goes on Fox within an hour or 2 hours of the shooting, right after Kirk has been confirmed to have died from his injuries. And it's one of the most psychopathic things I've ever seen. If you watch that full interview, I didn't play the whole thing, I just played some of it. His tone, the fact that he's smiling, all of that just turns me off. He can sit here and claim that he cares about him, and look, he gave me a heads up, help. But if you just look at his body language, it is not indicative of someone who is disgusted by what happened. A guy like Jack Posobiec, for example, every time you see him in an interview where he's talking about Kirk, he's very demure, and you can tell that this is something that affects him. So again, this isn't even like a political thing of like, oh, the conservatives have no feelings. Rather, it's a commentary on the inability of people to act like human beings in the face of tragedies that they can exploit for their own either financial or status-related gain. Now again, if it had just been this creepy interview, this disgusting interview where he's like seemingly giddy about his supposed mentor being killed, I wouldn't have bothered doing a video, because people have all types of weird reactions. There's actually become a whole subgenre of videos where people are looking into his wife and whether she's being exploitative as well, or knew what was going to happen. Just people have been dissecting the way these people have been acting for a while. But and again, it's only been 3 weeks since the man was murdered. Actually, I think less than that, right? That was the 10th, today's the 2nd. So it's only been several weeks, not even a full month yet. Brylan puts up this video where he's on this private, I'm not going to play it because I don't want to hear any more of his voice, but he puts up this video where he is on a private jet with a Rolex watch, talking about how he's going to go to these college campuses and we're going to have such a fun time. And look, I know Kirk was a rich man. Like, by the time he died, he apparently had a net worth of $12 million. Was getting paid, I believe it was $300,000 a year from Turning Points USA. Right, so he was not some, average Joe in terms of wealth, but he was much better at conveying a sense of humanity and humility. Right, this is a guy who, remember, for all the times he wore suits and ties, his last outfit was a t-shirt and some, just regular casual attire. To have a 19-year-old go to a campus to talk to college students who are there to get degrees so they can have a chance at even being able to get a job that isn't complete garbage, show up there in his private jet with his Rolex watch. It is so tone deaf. It is so completely irregular. And apparently TP USA came out and said that we're not affiliated with whatever he's doing. But man, you really have to think to yourself. Again, this was someone who, out of their own mouth, says they considered Kirk a mentor. And within an hour of his death, they're smiling during an interview and promoting their own, further ventures. And within weeks of his death, they're basically trying to take over his gig. Now, to the credit of a lot of conservatives on, Twitter and different social media, they seem to be able to kind of catch what's going on here. The way this works is that the influencer space is something that both parties want members of so that they can promote their ideas and, appear to be making inroads with the youth vote. So what they do is they get these young people of either side and they start pumping money into them. And sometimes that artificial support starts to become very pronounced. So for example, a lot of people were saying they've never heard of Brylan before, but yet somehow he has, over 200 videos and 12,000 subscribers. And that's one of those things where you have to ask yourself, does he have 12,000 subs because people like him so much and, oh my God, this kid is brilliant, or because of the likely hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars that are going into propping him up as Kirk's replacement? And look, the sad thing about the world is that the more money you have, the more you can artificially grow your brand. I mean, that allowed Ramaswamy to run a losing presidential campaign and then come out of that campaign that he knew from the first day it started would have no chance of winning, to cultivate that into a YouTube channel with, at the last time I looked, over 500,000 subscribers. You know, because it's all free promotion. I have all this money, I can just throw it around and I can make myself a bigger deal than I would be if I were left to just, you know, my actual vernacular and positions. And look, I have to keep restating this. I was no fan of Kirk. I actively did not watch his stuff. But I almost feel as though I've had a more natural reaction to his passing than some of the people who knew him. And with this Brylan guy, you're talking about someone who is being propped up, possibly, you know, through his handlers more than himself. That's why I don't really want to be too aggressive towards him. But it's scary that all of this stuff is doing is just dehumanizing the person that they claim is now a martyr for the conservative movement. I mean, imagine if some left-wing commentator, you know, that I knew, and I don't know any of them, but, you know, just personally, but just as an example, if a left-wing commentator I knew was murdered on a college campus, and then within an hour, I'm saying this while I'm smiling, I'm so sad about what happened to him, and then three weeks later, get ready for me to start going to campuses. Like, it's such blatant disrespect. And honestly, I feel bad for Kirk, you know, posthumously, because there is something wrong about a kid that you mentor being able to just decide that he's going to take over whatever you were doing, you know, within a few weeks of, you know, of your tragic and, for a lot of people, traumatic demise. It basically reduces Kirk to just being any old, you know, name on a checklist that you can write off and then stick somebody else there. Like, we're not, like, at this point, being a commentator on their side isn't even the equivalent of being a human being, where you're just, oh, this person died unexpectedly, okay, we'll just stick somebody else there. And I say this with absolutely no malice towards Brylan or anyone else that calls himself trying to pick up the baton of going to, you know, college campuses, because I do think people would, just society at large would benefit from politicians and influencers and all the rest of them engaging with what are supposed to be institutions of higher learning and debate. But if you want to try to continue that and go to as many different schools per year or per semester, whatever, I would strongly encourage having events indoors with security guards all around. I mean, I do not want to see a repeat of what happened to Kirk. That shouldn't have happened. It has, unfortunately. And I don't know. It's like, I really do not think this is normal. I don't believe anyone that would call themselves the protege or being mentored by another person would say, hey, it's been a few weeks since he died. Time for me to take over what he was doing and try to see if I can gain his supporters. But again, it shows you the whole corporate aspect of this stuff, right? Like, when they think there's a power vacuum, they're like, okay, well, let me just stick this other person in there. And I don't find Brylan, you know, to be anywhere near as, I guess you could say, you know, charismatic or whatever as Kirk was, which is why I don't think it's going to work, and that's why a lot of people are rubbed the wrong way by him. But this is just, again, no humanity. We're all just replaceable puppets to whoever our handlers are. Hey, this employee got fired, put someone else there. Hey, this guy that was promoting conservative ideals got killed on campus a few weeks ago, put this other guy there. Except with the latter case, there's some resistance to it, which I'm glad for, because again, whether you liked Kirk or not, it has only been a few, and this would be wrong even if they were doing it a few months later or a year later, to just basically say, hey, while smiling, I'm the new him. Come and subscribe to me. Like, it is wild, man.